Monday, May 5th, 2014. Good morning, I'm Carlton Smith. Welcome to Let's Talk Live on this beautiful Monday morning. Today's show is being brought to you by KFC, BTC LTE, Colina Insurance, the IAAF World Relays Bahamas, Easy Car Sales, and the Free National Movement. Today's show, you can listen to us on GuardianTalkRadio.com. You can also listen to us on Cable Channel 969. Watch us on Cable Channel 5. Today we're going to be talking with members of the Democratic National Alliance, and we're going to get their take on some issues that are prevalent in our society today. But before we do that, we want to look at some of the articles in the newspaper today. The top story, Nottage says that he had no prior information on the cash matter. The Progressive Liberal Party government distancing itself now from the decision by the Royal Bahamas Police Force to approach Mr. Cash, Darren Cash, the chairman of the Free National Movement, and to seize some technological equipment from him, 2 laptop computers and a cell phone, for their investigation into the apparent leak of information, confidential information from the Bahamas Development Bank. And the Minister of National Security, Dr. Bernard Nottage, saying that he had no prior knowledge that police planned to execute a search warrant at the home of the Free National Movement chairman, nor did he inquire about the details after learning of that incident. And the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Anthony Ferguson, defending the actions of the Royal Bahamas Police Force in relation to that search and seizure of items from the home of the Free National Movement chairman. He said the police force is a professional organization with a professional group of persons in cybercrime who understand the law and their authority to do certain things. And, well, those are the 2 top stories today. We also have a story on the DNA leader questioning the award of a $20 million contract to a contractor to build a new complex, a new government complex on John F. Kennedy Drive. And today we have in studio the members of the Democratic National Alliance, the deputy leader of the DNA, Mr. Chris Mortimer. Good morning. Welcome to Let's Talk Live.
Good morning, Carlton. Pleasure to be here with you.
And Mr. Andrew Wilson, who is the national chairman of the DNA. Mr. Wilson, good to have you in.
Thank you very much, Carlton. Good morning, Bahamas.
And we have Ethric Bowe, who has been a prominent community activist and also a member of the DNA.
Deputy Chairman, they tell me.
That's what they told you? Okay. As long as they told you, that's important. Now we can tell the world.
Good.
Well, gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Live.
It's great to be here.
Thank you, Carlton.
Now, the DNA is one of those parties that many look at as a fringe party. The third force, some people call it, the option to the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement. The DNA began just over
3 years
ago. And now many people are taking a second look at the DNA. First of all, Andrew, as the national chairman, you wanna begin by letting us know something about what you're doing.
Well, you know, Carlton, you said that Bahamians are awakening. Several years ago, the father of our nation, God rest his soul, called his 2 favorite sons to his side. And he said, Hubert, you go to the FNM. Perry, you go to the PLP. And you will rule this nation forever. He instructed Hubert.
Were you at that meeting?
This is from their own mouth. This is from their own mouth, Carlton. They've said it on the national stage many a times. All right? And I can only surmise that in his advice to Hubert, he would have said to Hubert that you will be the leader of the white Bahamians, the light-skinned Bahamians, and the curly-hair Bahamians. They must love, trust, and respect only you. He sent Perry back to the PLP to be the leader of the rest of the Bahamians. All right? But there is a new Bahamian awakening today under the auspices of the DNA. A Bahamian that is not going to allow one party to rule this nation forever. all right? A Bahamian that recognizes that there is no difference between the PLP and the FNM, that they are two sides of the same coin. A Bahamian that takes no pride in saying, I was born a PLP, I'm going to die a PLP, or I was born an FNM, I'm going to die an FNM. Bahamians who are just sick and tired of being sick and tired of the PLP and the FNM.
So what does the DNA offer the Bahamian today? I heard that diatribe just now, and it sounds impressive, that we are creating a new Bahamian. We are creating this new culture in our society where we are not concerned about PLP, FNM, or DNA. We are concerned about Bahamians. But what are you offering that's different from what the PLP has offered in the past and are currently offering today, and what the FNM has offered in the past and are currently offering today? What will distinguish the DNA from the PLP and the FNM?
I think if you take a look at what we're talking about, first, you'll find that, and you've said it, and other people have said it in various venues, which is, there are no real new ideas under the sun, correct? Mm-hmm. The real idea is ensuring that your team are people who can execute on ideas to make sure that they happen. And that's what has happened. I think, and what you'll be seeing, firstly, is a rebuilding of our team, executive team, our members, our candidates, so that when we come to the people and say, listen, when you elect the DNA, yes, we are going to ensure that we're going to deal with capital punishment. Yes, when we tell you we're going to deal with electricity, we are going to deal with electricity. Yes, when we tell you we're going to curb the powers of the Prime Minister, we're going to curb the powers of the Prime Minister. Yes, when we say we're going to deal with the cost of capital in this country, we're going to deal with the cost of capital in this country. So it starts with, you know what? These guys know about how to execute.
But they would say to you, Chris Mortimer, that we heard this from the PLP when they first came to power. We are going to deal with this. We're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with that. We heard it from the FNM when they first came to power. We're going to deal with these things. We heard it from the PLP when they came back to power. We're going to deal with these things.
Yeah,
we have heard that time and time again. That is no new song. What are you going to do differently?
No, I understand that may be the same song, right? But the question is, you still didn't deal with what I said, which is, when you take a look at the persons who are now coming to the DNA, whether it's, as you saw over the weekend, with a Rupert Roberts coming out and saying, listen, I'm with these guys. You are now talking about people, whether it's Etherick, whether it's Andrew, whether it's myself, whether it's Mr. McCartney, some of the other people who we will be letting people know. Hold on, let me finish. When you see that, you say, you know what? Your history speaks. So we're not coming like the ordinary politician who, all they know how to do is talk good. And that's the problem. See, on those other side, they know how to talk good. They could sell you a microphone on the moon because that's how good their talk is. What we're saying is, when you look at the DNA, you're going to see people who know how to get things done in their own lives, not just talk.
That's what Hubert Ingram said, that the PLP talk and the FNM act. You're coming now and saying the FNM and the PLP talk and the DNA will act.
No, we will act, and we will act differently. See, we all Bahamians.
Yes.
And I think that is your point.
Yes.
Culturally, we're the same. On serious issues, we have the same kind of views. Mm-hmm. What we recognize is that we need system changes. Mm-hmm. And that's why you hear him talking about we're going to curb the powers of the Prime Minister. We're going to do that.
How will you do that?
We're going to do that really quickly, right out the gate, before we get into the Bahamian norm, before we have a chance to get comfortable with power. We're going to make the changes really quickly. And our leader understands that in the DNA party, he is not a law unto himself. He has to answer. In governance, what we're doing is the Prime Minister's term, number one, will be limited. So nobody again in the Commonwealth of Bahamas will be Prime Minister indefinitely. There'll be no incentive to manipulate the democracy in order to maintain power. If we shift away from maintenance of power to governance, then you will see an improvement right there. There's some things...
Let's visit that same point about the term limit for the Prime Minister. The leader of the opposition was here last week, and I asked him the same question. He said that he will implement a term limit, no more than 2 terms. I said to him that in the American system, the republic system in America, they have a system where if you serve 1 term as Prime Minister, as President, and you lose, you're no longer eligible to return again. You have finished your tenure as President, even if it's only for 1 term, 4 years. I said, will we adopt that same approach? He couldn't give me a definitive answer. He said 2 terms. 2 terms could be 2 non-consecutive terms. 2 non-consecutive terms could give rise to abuse of power just to get back in office for another opportunity if you were out of office.
That is very good, but with the DNA, what you've got to appreciate is the DNA leader is limited as leader. So he only has a certain amount of time to be leader of the DNA.
What does the Constitution of the DNA say regarding their leader?
He can only serve as leader for 2 terms. Two terms.
2 terms?
Yes, that's in the Constitution of
As
the DNA.
consecutive or non-consecutive?
It is both. It is non-consecutive terms. But I want to get back to what you said with respect to the United States. Legally in the United States, a president can serve 1 term, right? And if he only wins, if he loses the next time, he can still come back again. That's technically still the law in the United States. It hasn't changed. What happened is, the difference is they have adopted systems in place that not precludes them, but literally forces them off the scene. But that's not law in the United States. What I'm saying for the Bahamas is, I mean, we may have a system here where we still have a leader. He may have lost, but still holds serious sway.
Many people believe that once you lose an election, you've lost the confidence of the people. So why should you remain the leader of a political organization if the people said to you, if they reject you at the polls today and say, we don't want Etrick Bowe anymore as leader of the DNA, we want somebody else, send us somebody else because he ain't gonna cut it. Why should you send him 5 years?
Oh, no, but what I'm saying is, if based on your argument, if that was after making the determination that the party lost because of a particular leader, right?
In the developed world, in Britain, for example, who operate the Westminster system, the Westminster model is at its best, manifests itself at its best in Britain. And if the leader of a party loses an election, that's it. They ain't coming back.
Yes, that's very true, Carlton. And it's a system based on honor. Here in the Bahamas, when we speak of the fact that the political parties have been corrupted at the infrastructural level, we speak to the fact that the leadership of both the PLP and the FNM has stacked the governing councils of their parties in such a manner that they have absolute control of the electoral process.
Of the electoral process within the party.
Within
Correct.
the party.
Within the party.
Yes,
but
within the party.
what I'm saying is that, are we talking about a paradigm shift with the DNA, where you have instituted this term for your leader, and I hear you non-consecutive. I would have preferred if you said to me 2 consecutive terms as leader of the party. If you lose the leadership tomorrow, and somebody else assumes the leadership, your party is that dynamic that they don't have to come and recycle you and bring you back for another term.
No, but
What is important is this. You are looking at a change because I see the focus on the individual leader. And that has always been the case. When you look at this table here, you will see that we are focusing on something else. We're looking at the leadership. And when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about a team. That's why we are carefully selecting the people who we try to get into the leadership of our party, because we are trying to move away from this one-man band thing, where there's one man in the party and everybody else is eunuchs. We're not going with that. And if you look at the people you're talking about, you know there are no eunuchs in this room. And if you look at the people who we are actively recruiting and the people who we will be unveiling in the near future, you will understand that all of these people are leaders in their own right.
So in a nutshell, for the Bahamian public, what distinguishes the DNA from the PLP and the FNM?
Real men and women will be at the helm of the DNA. Real men, real women, people with real capacity. See, you can make all the rules you like, you know, and we have all,
That's a little ambiguous, though.
No, I'll make it clear right now. We can have all the laws in the world. We can have the Constitution. But if you have a leadership so powerful that they can reject the laws of the country, reject the Constitution, which has been done, then we still back the same thing. What we're trying to do is shake the Bahamian people awake, so that we're no longer afraid, so that we can stand up and say, listen, Mr. Prime Minister, you have no clothes on. Mr. Prime Minister, what you're doing is illegal and you can't do it. We will not allow you to do it. You have to obey the law too.
Let me ask a question that gets to the heart of the question of democracy within the DNA. There are people who are saying that the electoral process for the leadership of the DNA is not democratic. That's the word on the street.
But
That's the perception that many people have. I'm not saying the majority of people, but many people have that perception of the DNA.
Well, let me crush that perception, because I've been on this show, not your show, but the prior show. I've been on other stations throughout this this country, and you know, it seems to me like only the media believes this perception. It's absolute nonsense. And those persons who are from the FNM, but let me deal with it. Let me deal with it. Because here it is.
I want to respond to that statement about the media.
No, because you know, because they keep asking the same question even when it's answered.
Because I heard that as recent as this weekend in Grand Bahama. I was in Grand Bahama and I had conversations with some people, a former DNA candidate, a good friend of mine in Grand Bahama. We had some discussions, and during those discussions, the question came up about democracy within the DNA.
Right.
And the question is whether there's a democratic process in the DNA for the election of its executive members. That was the question.
Absolutely.
And,
so let me
the individual there could not fully answer the question to the benefit of those people. So it's not necessarily the media.
Let me answer it then, Carlton.
The media is here to ask the questions
I
that
agree.
the Bahamians are asking.
I agree with you.
So that the Bahamians can get a better understanding.
Well, let me answer the question.
Okay.
Prior to the last election, the same electoral process that I was elected at, Mr. McCartney was elected at. We had a special conclave where all representatives, members, candidates, and their representatives from throughout the Bahamas. We had a special conclave at our headquarters, which was administered by Pastor Mario Moxie, by Mr. Pierre Depuch, one other person, there were 3 people, and we went through the whole process. And I can tell you today that Mr. McCartney's name was on the ballot, and he ran unopposed. No one chose to oppose him for the position of leader, and that's how he was elected. For the election of deputy, there were 6 candidates, of which I was selected by my colleagues. And so when people are saying that there was no process, that is absolute nonsense. And for a former candidate, he must not have been a candidate, because all candidates and their representatives were at that conclave.
I didn't say that he didn't answer, you know. I say he didn't answer to the satisfaction of the individuals there.
But let me answer it satisfactorily and as forcefully as I can, so that through your airwaves, and I know you got the number, you can be there. I want people to understand that
I accept that.
that Mr. McCartney, prior to the last election, was elected in a special conclave held by the DNA, at the same conclave where I was elected. And to move forward, I can tell you, without being contradicted, that before the next election, we will have convention, where he And anybody else who choose to run for any particular position in the party, they're going to be able to do so.
Does your constitution speak directly to conventions and when conventions should be held? Other major
Once every 2 years.
Other major parties say.
Once every 2 years.
Okay, so you're almost due for convention now.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's why I'm saying before the next election, but we can make sure them other fellas do theirs.
Election 3 years away.
No.
So you can't follow behind what them other fellas do, man.
No.
You sound like them.
Oh, I'm not me.
Yeah,
I can't sound like them because
that's what I say.
no,
I can see what them other fellas can do.
No.
That's how
I am
the
telling.
PLP and the FNM has been operating for years. When you come to them and you say, "Listen, man, when are you going to do? When the next fellas do theirs, we can do ours."
No. We can have ours. We're going to have ours. Trust me.
You haven't set a date yet.
No, we have not set a date.
Why? You're 3 years old.
Carlton, you will be the first to know once we have said that date.
No,
Why? Why haven't we set a date?
You should have at least 2 conventions between now and 2017.
And we will.
You will.
Yes.
Okay. Let's move on. The DNA is attempting to be different by putting some things in place, some systems in place that will ensure democracy reigns supreme in its organization and through its policies in government, how they govern the country. That's essentially the message you want to send to the Bahamian people?
Absolutely. You know, when I joined, I supported the DNA during the last election. I didn't vote for the DNA. I voted for the PLP because we had a mission to get rid of the FNM. That was the governing incentive during that election.
You spoke at a DNA rally in Bamboo Town.
Yeah, I did.
And vote for the PLP?
I made it very clear. Join the DNA, vote for the PLP, because I saw at that time the DNA as the future. We had a situation that we had to deal with right then, because the former Prime Minister I saw was a threat to the very democracy of this country. And we had to get rid of it.
It's a serious statement after
It's a very serious statement. And some of the things that he's done, and I said it before, he ought to be tried for treason. Some of the things that he did to this country has set us back more than 50 years. You know, and he really should be ashamed. He needs to come to the Bahamian people and apologize for his term in office. And all of those people who sat with him and sold BTC, all of them who sat with him and sold BTC against their own better judgment, because these are friends of mine, you know. These are family of mine. I know what they think because we've discussed these things so many times. They did not believe that they should have sold BTC. But they went along with him because I don't know what kind of power he had over them. But he had some power over them that was beyond human. You can't find that power in church under any kind of prophet or anything. But he had beyond human hold over them and caused them to do things contrary to what they believe.
I can't believe that one man can have that kind of spell over grown men. That's like telling me my boss has such a spell over me that if I have an opinion about something and I am convicted that this is the right thing to do, I don't have the guts to tell him this is what I feel. Now you have the option to do whatever you want to do.
They would change their
opinion. This is what I feel.
They would change their opinion. They would change their opinion. One guy was in the House of Assembly moving the bill, and his brother was outside protesting against it. You know, and he's my cousin, and I know he's opposed to it.
Well, I know how to speak.
And then there's also.
But sometimes it's all about political survival. In this country, with the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement, I say without fear of contradiction, many of the politicians in these organizations are castrated because they stand up. And sometimes a fella don't want to be exposed, and so he goes with the status quo. He moves with the status quo. In our politics, if you go against the grain, you could forget it.
See, and here you have Andrew Wilson, a man who never had a job in his life. Ethric Bow, who's been unemployed for a long time. You know, we're not.
You gentlemen are businessmen, though, so you're not technically unemployed.
But I think
When I say unemployed, I don't draw a salary.
Right.
I mean, I'm a part of a number of organizations, and nobody chooses to pay me. You know, without the good graces of my wife, I wouldn't eat. But
I know a little better, Andrew.
but I think you're making the exact same point for why we need systemic change in this country. It is ludicrous to believe in the 21st century Bahamas that we want to perpetuate a system of governance that literally takes its foot and step on the will of the people. Right? It cannot be right. And what we're saying is that is exactly that point that you made. You made the case for the DNA just now, and I'm glad you did. I was waiting for you to do it. But you made the case because...
I'm not a DNA. Let's clear that up. I'm not a DNA, I'm not a PLP, I'm not a FNM.
I just like a green shirt
when the
today.
PLP is in power, I am FNM, and the FNM is in power, I'm in PLP. I'm a PLP, so I love that. I love that. They love to brand me opposition.
I'm not branding you anything.
No.
I mean, even though you have that green shirt, I'm not branding you anything. All I'm saying though is you made the case. You made the case, and that's part of it. I think exactly what we were talking about before is the system of governance in this country that has been perpetuated for decades. I mean, prior to election, independence, the system has not changed, and if we don't fix it, right? If we don't fix it, we will be another country that's on the verge of becoming like a Haiti or Jamaica. And that is what we're saying. The time frame for us to fix what ails this country is getting short. And if we don't do it, if we don't stand up, if someone don't stand up, if the people don't stand up and make this change happen, right, then all of us, regardless of what color you wear, then won't make no difference because there won't be no country left.
Carlton, when you look at what's going on, we talk about system changes, right? The country is broke.
Yeah. Been broke.
Been broke. The government has declared the country broke. The government is saying, we need to tax you some more. And in the same breath, almost the same breath, they're saying, we're going to spend $230 million of borrowed monies on boats. Now, what do we know about these boats?
We're going to hold that point because we're going to talk about those issues in just a moment. We haven't gotten to the issues yet. I see the DNA leader taking exception to a $20 million contract awarded. You alluded to the boats, the Defense Force vessels, more than $200 million being spent on that. We're talking about the value-added tax issue that many people have complained about vehemently in the media and really to the politicians themselves. And so we're going to talk about those issues, the DNA's positions on those issues, because one of the things that we do on this show is when we talk about what you're going to do, not they're going to change. How are you going to change? We want the Bahamian people here specifically what you intend to do or how you would deal with a situation that has been dealt with by the party in power now or the government before. We'll take a break on Let's Talk Live and continue in just a moment. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live on this Monday morning on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You can follow us on GuardianTalkRadio.com. Listen to us on cable channel 969. Watch us on cable channel Rev Pulse 5. We will open the lines in the second hour of the show, but in this first hour, we want to get a good understanding of what it is the DNA's policies are and how they will approach governance in this country. And gentlemen, we have talked extensively about the DNA and how the DNA distinguishes itself from the other major political organizations in the country. Now let's talk issues. The number one issue on the table today is value-added tax. And many people have been looking at value-added tax exclusively as the government's approach to raising additional revenue. How does the DNA see value-added tax in the whole scheme of the economy and the fiscal management of our country?
To talk about VAT by itself, you're not going to have a proper conversation. we have to talk about our entire fiscal situation,
Right.
fiscal response,
Responsibility.
Yeah, you can't talk about revenue
Without
without talking about
expenditure.
expenditure, right? And the first thing you've got to do before you ask someone for more money, you've got to account for the money that you are already charged with. So that is fundamental. And I will tell you a personal thing that I think is very relevant, because a lot of people probably experience the same thing. For over a year now, I've been trying to pay property taxes, and I want the government to hear property taxes on an apartment, because I don't want them to come 5 years later and say, I didn't pay. I pay all of my taxes. And up to 2 weeks ago, you know what they told us? Hold your money.
Why?
Because they just haven't gotten around to us yet. They haven't processed us yet. We've put everything that we've had got to do for them to collect.
You have an appraised value of your property.
Yeah.
And by virtue of that appraised value, you have a bill that you know that you must
We
pay.
do not have a bill. We've registered the property. We're saying, listen, tell us what we have to pay so we could pay you.
But you should know what you should have to pay based on the percentage of real property
No,
tax.
I don't determine that. They determine that.
Yeah,
They send me
I'm
a
saying-
bill,
I'm
and I
saying-
pay it.
I'm
But
saying-
Carter, let me go a step further on another property.
Uh-huh.
They sent us a bill. It took me 3 attempts to get that bill paid, because the first time we sent someone to pay the bill, they said, you know, and you send a little tag that from the bill, they said, there's nothing here for you. That's a whole man that went downtown. It took us 3 attempts
To pay one bill.
to pay one bill.
One tax.
One tax. Now, it shouldn't inconvenience me to pay a tax. It should be easy to pay taxes.
Yeah, that's-
Money should go into the treasury easily
Yes.
and make it a little difficult to
come
come out.
Right.
But we have it flipped the wrong way around. It's easy to come out,
But very
and they make it difficult to go in. So we've got to look at the business approach that is taken to governance here.
So fundamentally, you're saying that this whole approach to value-added tax should be shelved until such time that we have a responsible fiscal management system in place.
Absolutely. Look at the centers where we collect monies. On a day-to-day basis, do they balance?
That's a good question.
You know, road traffic still has a lot of leakages. You know, we know where there are faults in the system, and we won't fix it. We know people aren't paying their real property tax, and you can't avoid it because you can't move the land. We know when you file to build on a piece of property, that should go straight through to the real property tax people, so that from then they know that, hey, there's an expectation that tax should be paid on this property.
What you're talking about requires a cultural shift in our society, a major paradigm shift.
It requires management.
That's right.
Management systems. The government is not being managed. It's not being managed.
But the government would say we're not being managed, we're not managing as prudently as we should, because we can't pressure the Bahamian people who are struggling right now.
I totally
That,
don't understand
that expenditure hasn't been over the past 5 years. The amount of money that's owed in real property tax, that's not a 5-year problem. That is a problem for over decades.
I share your view.
You know, and so my thing is, there is, I mean, I understand people are having a real tough time now, right? But at the same time, I don't want the government to use that as an excuse for not putting in place the systems that that this country needs. In fact, in your paper today, where you have Gow and Bow talking about, it'll make a difference what type taxation system you put in place.
Right.
If we can't control expenditure, right? You could have a 20-30% VAT rate, and the books just won't balance. And so if we don't get to the point where we say, listen, I can tell you the DNA position on the matter. I don't know what you're talking about a VAT for when you all have to deal with systemic problems. I mean, it's not even leakages. We are talking about huge holes in our fiscal
Systemic
system.
abuses.
Yeah, look at what we're doing with energy. From the time, and I'm only talking about the PLP time, because we had high expectations for this administration, and they've disappointed us.
Why would you have had high expectations for an administration that was challenged during its first 5 years? Why would you have had...
No, this is a different group. if you look at this group, this is like
They added some pieces.
this is like we have the all-star of all stars. This is the best of the best, and nobody could get the ball in the hoop.
But that can't be the best of the best when the prime minister is the same. The deputy prime minister was a member of the backbench.
As you call them off, let me deal with them.
Right.
He is the prime minister of second chances. We gave him a second chance, right? And basically, in business, every time you mess up, you pay. He messed up, he paid, he's got another chance, and he's doing the same thing or worse. Now that is unprecedented, and it makes it difficult for someone else to get a second chance.
The deputy prime minister may be new to his present role as deputy prime minister and a cabinet minister, but he's always been a part of the backbench of the Progressive Liberal Party.
The deputy prime minister is a huge disappointment. I'll tell you why. He marched with us. He prayed with us. We took him at his word. And when he came to power, he did nothing about those roads. And he had the ability to do it.
Did he promise that he would reverse the roads?
Well, the party promised. Bradley Roberts was all over TV, all over radio saying that they were going to reverse those roads. The record is there. The record is clear. There's no denying that. And
they would say Bradley speaks for the party and not for the government.
Well, the government really flows from the party. You know, the party makes the promise and the government delivers on it. Like you look into the DNA now, we tell you unequivocally, we're going to reduce the cost of electricity. When we come to power, you expect to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So
see, but the excuse is that when I come to power, I meet things that I didn't expect. And so by virtue of what I meet, I am unable to fulfill my promises.
That was not the case with the roads. You know, a lot of these problems we have, it's just a matter of resolve. We lack the political will. You see, they're too busy, they're too distracted doing other things. They do not have the focus on the 360,000. And that is what we're going to bring. We're not career politicians. As a matter of fact, I know personally, and I know I can speak for Andrew as well, we don't want to be politicians at all. What we recognize is our country is in crisis, and we're responding. And there are a number of people out there, professionals who I speak to, they understand the country is in crisis. And we have to respond. You need to consider as well. We need to respond because we need to save our country. Nobody is coming from somewhere else to save our country. You know, the PLP is always looking for someone to come across the bar, from across the bar, to either tell us what to do or to save us. So anyone who builds your house, someone else builds your house, you're going to be a tenant in that house.
So the first step to fiscal reform would be putting systems in place.
Well, we've got to chew gum and walk at the same time. We're going to have to do a number of things at the same time. See, nothing is going to move forward without reducing energy costs. We've got to get the cost of energy down. We've got to get the cost of good food down. We've got to get the cost of housing down.
How do you propose to get the cost of energy down?
The PLP has the answer, you know.
What is the answer?
The PLP has the answer, and we cannot continue burning our... And let me be direct with you. One is we convert garbage to energy. That's one. That's feasible, that's viable. There's financing available for it. The cost of power could have been nearly halved. And the companies that do it would still be making tremendous profits. We're talking now about selling out BEC. We cannot sell our utilities or anything like that to private organizations where there's not going to be competition, because the history of it is, and the economics of it is, there will be exploitation. Things will be overpriced.
The way it happens in Grand Bahama.
Absolutely. And with BTC.
Right.
Nassau too. You know, we have to have competition, and we've got to have real competition. We cannot go around trying to select winners. Like, oh, Andrew, you're going to have a contract, you're going to be very rich, but Carlton, no, you didn't support us, you're not going to have a contract. Forget that. Andrew is a Bahamian, Carlton is a Bahamian. Here's the opportunity. Do with it what you will. This is how you qualify. But we should not be determining the outcome.
So the DNA is opposed to selective bidding. as we see
Absolutely.
in the newspaper today.
Nobody, we still need to define the selective bidding. What does that mean?
I get the opportunity as the person in charge to select who of the bidders.
You have to stack the deck.
When you do that, you start the destruction of the economy. There's nothing stronger than competition, better than competition to make look at our key. Everybody's selling Kong salad.
And everybody making money.
Everybody's making money. The quality of the Kong salad is good because you get bad Kong salad, you go next door.
Right.
You get bad service, you go next door. And this is what we've got to do. We've got to open up our economy so it becomes more vibrant. We have to stop people from doing things. We have to stop stopping people from doing things. We have to facilitate people doing things, because every time we get someone to start another business, what we've got for the government, for the country, is a new revenue source. We've got to grow the economy rather than just trying to suck the last drop out of poor people.
So you're opposed to this policy of foreign direct investment driving economic growth?
Not in its entirety. Not in its entirety. What I am for is for involvement in the nationals in the economy. There are certain portions of the Bahamian economy where we shut out Bahamians. We've got a lot of Bahamian money that is not even in the Bahamas because of our foolish policies.
Yeah.
If we change some of our policies, you'll see a lot of funds coming back into the Bahamas.
Absolutely.
And then you'd see a lot more investment. But we have this paternalistic attitude where we say we don't want Bahamians to fail. The only way to succeed is to expose yourself to failure.
I mean, I think foreign direct investment is going to be with us for a while, and obviously, if there are persons outside the Bahamas who see that there are opportunities in the Bahamas and are prepared to fund it, the DNA is not opposed to that. But what we are saying is that the same level of treatment we give these guys, these foreigners, we need to start treating our own people the same way, giving them access. Just the same way a foreigner could come into this country, get money from overseas to get stuff done, right? But we preclude our own people who have the ability, the track record to get it done. I don't see any reason why a Robert Sandy Sands could not have financed and built and owned a Bahama. You know what I'm saying?
Interesting comment. We have to pause there for a second, go to our news update, come back, continue our discussion with members of the Democratic National Alliance. It's Deputy Leader Chris Mortimer, its National Chairman Andrew Wilson, and the Deputy Chairman Ethric Bowe. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You can follow us on GuardianTalkRadio.com. You can listen to us on cable channel 969, or you can also watch us on cable channel Rev Pulse 5. If you have a smartphone or some other mobile device, you can download our app free of charge, Guardian Radio app free of charge, and you can take us wherever you go today. Listen to us on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. I'm talking with members of the DNA, executives of the DNA, the chairman of the party, Andrew Wilson, the deputy leader, Ethric Bowe, and the deputy leader, Chris Mortimer, and the deputy chairman, Ethric Bowe. Gentlemen, the Progressive Liberal Party has been given the mandate for 5 years, and there were a number of things that they did coming out of the gate. They made a number of promises during the election campaign, and the Bahamian people were hoping that they would deliver on all of the promises that they made. But they began their administration by going to referendum, which became a non-binding referendum on the whole issue of gaming. They lost, the results came back negative. Bahamians do not want to approve web shop gaming. The Bahamians do not want a national lottery. Since that time, we've heard any number of different opinions from the government on what should or should not happen. If the DNA was the government in 2012, was elected to government in May 2012, how would it have dealt with the whole issue of gaming, web shop gaming, which has been a part of our landscape for many years now and continue, and it's growing, even though there is this whole discussion about the legality of it?
I think that prior to the last election, if you take a look at our vision 2012 and beyond, we spoke to the issue of the gambling issue. And if you take a look at it, we said it would have gone to referendum as well. But I think if you take a look at what we believe in the DNA, which is this, so listen, you know, foreigners shouldn't be able to do in this country what Bahamians are able to do. And I don't think we agree with the premise that people voted against the whole gaming issue. I think what you found out was that the process that the PLP undertook when they were moving this whole issue of gambling, they weren't clear. For example, for me, I don't have an issue with gambling or gaming in the country.
Did you vote?
Did I vote? I voted no.
Okay. Why did you vote no?
Because I was not going to give a blank check to somebody and just hope that they were going to do what was right. If they wanted, see, in issues of referendum, right, you have to build a case, all right, and then lay out the steps and the plans for it. What is the money going to be used for, right? How do I know that the money doesn't end up someplace where it's supposed to, where it's not supposed to go? And if you talk to a bunch of people, a lot of people, which I have, you'll say, listen, I just don't trust them. They didn't come with any sort of legislation.
But you trusted them just months before by giving them the mandate to govern the country. 6 months into that marriage, there's almost a breakup. Not the honeymoon is over. There's almost a divorce.
Carlton, many of us voted for the PLP in order to get rid of the F&M. We weren't voting for the PLP per se. We were saying we need to get rid of Mr. Hubert Ingram. Not even so much the F&M, you know. We needed to get rid of the leader of the F&M. And that was #1 priority. So we looked at the landscape and we said, you know, the DNA is a future party. Join the DNA.
In hindsight, do you regret not voting for the DNA?
Not really. Not really. I don't think that we did the wrong thing. I think the PLP is doing the wrong thing. The PLP has failed us. The PLP had the potential, has the potential to deliver. They know the right thing to do. I know the fellas in there. They know what to do.
But they may be, you talk about the spell that Mr. Ingram had on his members, on his cabinet members and parliamentarians.
Mr. Christie has no spell on them. And that is.
But they're not doing the right thing.
No, they're not. And that is because they are, one was too tight and one is too loose. And with this too loose thing, everybody's playing their own game and they're not acting in the interests of the Bahamian people. And that is the problem. You investigate each, most of them I would say, and if you talk to them long enough, they will tell you everybody's running their own deal. And
there's no accountability?
No, you ask the Minister of Health how much the consultants cost, he tells you he don't know. And his response, if he doesn't know, he should say, listen, my assistant here is going to call the office and get that figure for you. But he should know that it is his job to answer his superiors, the people who are paying him.
But they don't see you as a superior.
Yeah, but then we need
you work for them. They don't work for you.
We need to correct that. Because I see.
He's making the argument for us again.
That's probably why they don't want to take my tax payments, you see. Because they know I'll come on radio or TV and say, listen, I actually paid them, so they're refusing the payment.
So let's move to another issue. I get your position on that. You would have gone to referendum, and would you have taken the results of the referendum as final?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's go to another issue. The government of the Bahamas had a situation with the National Insurance Board. And as a result of what transpired during the situation with the National Insurance Board, one of the members of the Progressive Liberal Party, who was chairman of the National Insurance Board, got fired by the Prime Minister for quote-unquote insubordination, I would call it. Right decision, wrong decision?
Well, I think technically all members of Parliament serve at the leisure, at the pleasure of the Prime Minister. So the
Cabinet.
So
Not members of Parliament. Members of Parliament serve at the pleasure of the people.
But he chose that position.
Right.
Right. He was offered the position by the Prime Minister,
Right.
which he accepted.
Right.
And so that post is a post that's appointed by the Prime Minister, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Carlton, that was clearly it was not handled properly, right? And it wasn't handled thoroughly, and I hope that it is not yet at an end, because if I recall right, there's a $10 million issue where they were planning or trying to get $10 million out of national insurance to invest in some insurance company. And they try not to deal with that. Now, I keep writing my MP, you know, we're friends, and he's been a good MP. And I keep writing them and say, hey, listen, man, you know, we need to understand how this going. Because absent the former MP's daughter, Maki's daughter, it seems that $10 million would have gone from national insurance to that insurance company. And that $10 million was enough to buy that insurance company. So really, if national insurance was investing $10 million in this insurance company, they should end up owning it. That's the one thing. The second thing,
have a majority stake, a serious majority stake.
$10 million would have bought it.
Ownership, outright.
Yeah, they would own it, own the whole thing. Kid and caboodle.
But you know, I think,
But
no, go ahead.
But the other part of it is we have this agency here in the Bahamas called the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas.
Right.
And there are some laws that they ought to be looking at to say, hey, are these people fit and proper to be operating an insurance company? Now, they jump all over the little brokerage here and there, but they say they have not mentioned one word about how they have been investigating this insurance deal. And that's not the only insurance deal that went down surrounding national insurance. If I have it correctly from the reports, it seems that the National Insurance Board signed this 3-year contract to cover their property. And the deductible on those insurance contracts was so high that the probability of ever having a claim was pretty next to zero. So it wasn't really insurance they were buying, it was just that they were paying out money. They need to explain these things clearly to the Bahamian people, because if that is the case, it is fraud.
But I think, if I can hop in there, I think it speaks to a bigger issue. I mean, I think there are a number of things with respect to national insurance that have happened over decades and by both administrations. But I think it speaks to the bigger issue of we need a proper Freedom of Information Act in this country. And not that so-called piece of legislation that the FNM passed to placate the Bahamian people in terms of freedom of information.
So you're saying that that legislation does not meet the criteria for freedom of information?
No, it doesn't, because at the end of the day, it's one of those where they say, okay, it's in the national interest, and then you don't have to get it. And so you have, you know, like what they like to do, give it to you with one, so say they give it to you with one hand, and then take it out of the other hand. We need real Freedom of Information Act so that the Fourth Estate has the access to report properly. And
so you're calling for the empowerment, for the further empowerment, for the real empowerment of the media?
Absolutely. And one of the things you hear us talk about, not only freedom of information, we want a Whistleblowers Act as a component of it that will protect those persons who are working in the interest of the country, so that they are not able to be victimized.
So you went to an area I was going to get to, because they have a major issue in the newspaper that we've been following since Friday regarding the Darren Cash situation and the information that was apparently leaked from Bank of the Bahamas, and now Cash, the national chairman of the Free National Movement, whose wife is an employee of the Bahamas Development Bank, has become one of the prime, I don't know if you can call him a suspect, but based on what transpired, he may be viewed as a suspect because you don't take equipment from somebody if you don't consider them a suspect. So are you saying that in a situation like that, if somebody decided that, okay, this is in the national interest, this is the Bahamian bank that's being abused, that appears to be being abused by a group of people, we need to make this information public. The information making that, the individual making that information public should have some level of protection.
Correct. Whistleblowers Act. And that's one of the things that we're
And so there would be no need for the police investigation to go that far to try and find
somebody
out.
who's acting in the interest of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and if there's something going on inside of a government organization or entity that is acting contrary to the interests of the Bahamas,
Right.
those persons who decide to stand up and step out in the interest of the people need to be protected.
And their jobs should be protected as well,
Absolutely.
even if they're internal people.
Absolutely. That's my take on it.
And the DNA is willing to put that kind of legislation in place.
Yes.
And we'd have to do it very quickly.
Let's go to the telephone lines. Our numbers to call 325-4316, 325-4259, 323-6232. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live.
Hey, good day, Mr. Smith.
Good day, hey Bonnie.
Everything cool, eh?
Yeah, everything's all right.
All right. Good day, Mr. Mortimer, and good day to your
Hey, Bonnie.
chairman in there.
Hey, Bonnie, how you doing?
Everything cool, man. Thank God for life.
Yes, sir.
One thing I could say now, Mr. Smith,
Yay.
I supported Mr. Mortimer
I know you always say that.
in
when
the
you come on
last,
the show.
yeah, so the glad you right there to sanction that. Because you got some people who say, well, Barney vote for the DNA, Barney vote for the PLP. But I let the whole public know before election and after election what the deal is. Now, one of my cries is this, Mr. Smith, and me and you talk about this before. Mr. Mortimer, in 2002, the PLP won. 2007, the PLP lost. Now we get the PLP for 2012. Now, the Progressive Liberal Party right now, on the F&M right now, some of them members ain't on the same page. And sometime Ryan Penn will say something, Bobby Wilshcombe will come back and say another thing, and the Prime Minister will say another thing just as well as Darren Cash, or Loretta Butler Turner, or Hubert Menace. Being on page is a serious thing. And I know parties which have democracy, poisons like the Speak Their Mind, poisons like a Leslie Miller, poisons like a Javago Lang, who used to like speak their mind at times. Now, election time is coming up. This is 2 years now. I hear the F&M of a commercial out with Christian Masters singing the music. Now, 2 years, I don't know, even if the DNA win, Mr. Smith, I don't think the DNA could do nothing right here and now, because the country is almost in a $6 billion deficit. The government got to be borrowing money to pay civil servants. Now the F&M is beating up the PLP, saying that the PLP ain't doing certain things. Now, yes, the opposition got to complain and make noise. Yes, we know that. That's why they are the full opposition party. Now, I ain't gonna say, I could be real with this. It ain't all bad with the PLP, because all governments have their ups and downs. The PLP government made this country, Mr. Mortimer, in a mess. And you know that, and I know that. Now, a lot of people not going to vote for the PLP and the F&M the next election. Mr. Mortimer, a lot of people mightn't even vote. All right?
I agree.
A lot of people mightn't even vote. And one of those parties would be in around from that time, I still end up winning. The DNA might win some seats. I love the DNA because I think I can support you again. Now, one of my problems I have with you is this, and I can tell Mr. Smith this now. Mr. Mortimer is a good man and everything, but Mr. Mortimer a little too scary. Why I say that is this. If you want to win a seat, you got to come down with the people. No disrespect, Chris. Chris, let me tell you how I used to campaign with Carl Battle. Of course, Carl Battle win the same seat in Nassau Village. Listen to me. The bad boys, or who they call the bad boys, don't worry about them. You know you could dialogue with them. The ladies out there with the children and things, you could dialogue with them. All you got to do is have teens in this village, which and I know you do, and you could win the seat easy. You people want to know what is your plan and your vision for this for Nassau Village. We all know on Facebook what you just do. I know what you do. You qualify. You're a good man who's do things. But I don't know if the Bahamian people right now ready to put a third party in power right now. Okay? That's my little 5 cents that they are not, because these people dangerous. You see them change the government 2007, you see them change it. They're ready to change the government again. These dangerous Bahamian people. So all I want you to do, your leader and the fellas in the DNA do, start campaigning if you want to win. Do you see? These Bahamian people don't play. You got to campaign. Don't wait till 1 year before election to come knocking on people's door. Be bold, Mr. Mortimer. When you come in Nassau Village and Soldier Road and Seabrace, be bold. Speak with the people out there and say now how they love you. I love some people in the PLP too, like Jerome Fitzgerald and Shane Gibson. I like for them to be leaders. I like for you to be a leader someday and all. I just a person I neutral. I don't play. I don't vote DNA, I don't vote PLP, I don't vote CDI. You can call me mix up like Kong Salin. I don't play. When I like a person,
But you also you vote F&M. You don't vote F&M yet?
Oh, me? Yeah.
Okay.
F&M I vote for in 92.
Okay.
Once I vote for them, but I can tell you, Chris Mortimer, if you all want to win, start campaigning and doing things in your area. You and all the Karen Davis, them, you all got to. I tell you, I love some people in the PLP who's my buddies. Have a good one, and God continue to bless you, buddy. Enough
Right.
respect.
Take
Thank
care,
you,
man.
Barney.
Much respect.
Let's go back to the lines. Good morning. You're on Let's Talk Live. Hello. Oh, we must have lost that call. Good morning. You're on Let's Talk Live.
Good morning, Carlton.
Good morning.
Carlton. How you doing?
Great.
Good. I just want to say something to the DNA officials there. Mr. Mortimer and Mr. Bow and Mr. Wilson. Every time you hear the DNA, right? We as Bahamians, we know what the F&M, the PLP is all about. But every time we hear the DNA, they the customer, either Mr. Ingram or Mr. Christie or the PLP and the F&M. Nobody can say what the DNA will do, what their plans are. You talk about that. Okay, you say it ain't going to work for the country. What's your plan? Like somebody said the other day, every time you hear Grandma McCartney, he cuts Mr. Christie. Every time, but he never tells people what's the DNA plan if you all take over tomorrow or take over the next election.
But I take exception to that because that's if I can get in there, call it, because it's absolutely not the case.
No, I hang up right now.
No, don't hang up. Hold on.
No, don't hang up. It's absolutely not the case. Let me just say this. You know, usually when we come on talk shows, the first thing that most people want to talk about is the F&M and the PLP. But if you have an opportunity, when you, for example, you talk about VAT. From the break, we said we did not want VAT, and we put out a 3-point plan for prosperity in which we laid out what we would have done. And if you want to talk about issues, about what the DNA will, I have no problem doing that, because when I first started, I talked about how we're going to curb the powers of the Prime Minister. We talk about how we're going to make sure that we have a return to capital punishment for offenses. We talk about how we're going to get the cost of electricity down. We talk about how we're going to deal with the cost of capital in this country. We talk about food security. All of these issues we have spoken to.
Okay, Mr. So let me just say something right, and I can let you continue. All of those things you're saying about how you're going to bring electricity down, all of these things, let me just something. I always say this, but politicians, you all always believe that you're smarter than the people you're all asking to vote for them. Bahamians know some things in this country cannot be done. We know that. We know that. That some things just can't be done.
I hope you're not suggesting that electricity costs can't be brought down, because they certainly can.
Okay, but just tell the Bahamian people, if you all wouldn't do that, what you all would do, how would it work, how you all deal with crime. The last time we heard Mr. Grandma McCartney talk about crime, he said, take the people downtown. That was nonsense.
Okay.
People just want to hear what you all have to say. Because it ain't be as easy as getting rid of the F&M and the PLP and just put you all in. It ain't going to work like that.
Okay.
Thank you, Carlton.
Let's deal with the crime issue. That is an issue that raised its head first in the run-up to the 2012 general election, when the Progressive Liberal Party complained that the level of violent crime, particularly murder, was much too high, and that they had a program in place, Project Safe Bahamas, an urban renewal 2.0, that would put a major dent in violent crime. To date, the Bahamian people have seen no manifestation of any significant change or any change in the level of violent crime in our society. And some people believe that violent crime is increasing in our society today and create a fear among the people and among those visitors who we depend on so heavily as the lifeblood of our economy. The DNA in power, how will the DNA approach the problem of crime in our society, which continues to plague this society?
Well, crime always, and you always have people first start off by it is a multifaceted problem, and I agree with that. Firstly, when we talk about crime, we talk about how do we sweat the small stuff, right? So dealing with the person who runs the red light or throws garbage, that's one part of it, okay? Sweating the small stuff. We also have to get to the point where we are investing in our youth, giving them opportunities to better themselves. But here's where the rubber meets the road. Until we get to the point where we can grow our economy to get people some jobs, all right? If we can't get the cost of electricity down, if people feel like they have no hope of accomplishing their own goals in this country, crime is a result of that. And so it's not, if you're thinking just by throwing more people in jail that you're going to get the crime situation under control, you're living in a dream world. We have to do some of the other things too. So the same way, I mean, we talk about, yes, we will enforce capital punishment for murder under DNA. But and the force by which we speak about that is the same force where we say we're going to make sure that young people are able to have jobs in this country so that they can feed their families and put proper food on the table, because a lot of that crime is coming from that as well. You know, and so people who want to, or young people who want to open their own businesses, but how is it that the foreigner could come into this town and get a loan for 3% in the Bahamas, and a young person got to do it at 9%. You see, it's all of these things acting in concert that's causing the problem. And so all of them have to be addressed. Why Mr. Bo was here talking about we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. All of these things need to happen. So it's not just going to be we're going to lock them up. Because if we don't do the other things, we cannot build enough prisons in this country to do it.
And Carlton, there are some people who need to be locked up as well. And we've got pervasive corruption. Corruption is endemic in the Bahamas, and we got to clean it up.
How do you clean up corruption? Let's talk about that, because that's a part of the criminal element of this country that we have been neglecting for centuries. How do you clean up corruption in a corrupt environment that's policed by corrupt people?
Carlton, one of the ways is to introduce real high-speed, reliable internet. That's one source, and I'll tell you why, because they don't seem to be connected. But if you're allowed to pay for things by credit card, then that can eliminate a lot of the corruption. You remove that cash element. The other thing is by sufficiency. Eliminate all these long lines. Like, for instance, if I don't have to go and stand in a long line to pay my car license, I could just pay for it, because that's only a tax, you know. That's all that is, a tax. Right. If I could pay from my bedroom at night, the money goes to the right place. And there's no need for me to try to bribe somebody or let somebody extort me because I don't want to wait 2 hours or 3 hours. You see, that goes away. If we collect the garbage twice a week, and I know it's going to happen on Wednesdays and Saturdays, there's no need for me to be extorted by the garbage collection people in order to make sure my garbage gets collected. So we eliminate crime. If we set up in a Ministry of Works whereby we know that I put my building plans in, and in 2 weeks it'll be processed, there's no need for me to be extorted by the people at Ministry of Works so that my plans come out in a very short period of time. It ain't that we don't know where the corruption is, you know. We are fully aware, all the leaders in this country know where the corruption is happening.
But it's very difficult for a government to stamp out corruption. That's endemic in our society. That's entrenched in our culture.
What is your point when you say it's very difficult? That is what they're there for, to do the difficult things.
But let me state the point. Let me state the case. Road traffic, for example. You alluded to road traffic.
We can fix that in a week.
You can fix that in a week.
I can fix that in a week. Now, when you get the whole DNA together, we can probably fix that in a day and a half.
But some of the people who are involved in the corruption are your people.
Yeah, and we move them.
And culturally, we have to protect our people politically.
No, I agree with you with regards to corruption. But you know how you deal with it. You first, and I think what Patrick is talking about, systems have to be in place to minimize the opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, beyond that, I think what Bahamians, general Bahamians, small man like me, right? And how you can tell the small man on the street, right, that he shouldn't be corrupt when the man who above him is corrupt and they know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
That's what I'm talking about.
You understand what I'm saying? And so how do you expect the guy on the street who do whatever he have to make sure food get on his table, even if it's through corruption, when they see what the man or the men and women at the top doing? And so when we're talking about fixing what ails this country, that's why we say it has to start at the top. I could probably be persuaded under a DNA government that we need a commission of inquiry, because Lord knows we probably do need it, and some people probably need to go to jail.
Ongoing commission.
But
Don't close.
and you alluded to the fact that we need to upgrade our technology in the public sector. That is a foregone conclusion. We've talked about upgrading the technology. We now have e-passports, but we're still taking 5 weeks to get them. You have to apply and go back 5 weeks later to get a copy, to get an electronic passport issued. Now, there's something fundamentally wrong with that, because if you have technology, it's like a driver's license. They told I paid for my driver's license today. They told me come back and pick it up tomorrow. I went back a month later, and it wasn't ready. I had to come back the next day. Tell me if something is fundamentally wrong with that.
And fundamentally, what is wrong, Carlton, that we've got to address, and we've got to look at square in the eye, we've got to look at the Bahamian people, and we've got to speak to the Bahamian people honestly. We need productivity. See, this stuff about taxation, there's no point talking taxation if the people are not productive. We have got to teach and preach and talk to the people about being productive. If you get paid by your boss $9 an hour, your boss is only reselling your service, He has to be able to get $9 an hour, more than $9 an hour work from you in order to make it worth his while to keep you employed. People have to be made to understand that. If we get productivity up with our people, there will be, I can, without the math, I can pretty much tell you there'll be no need for more taxes. But we've got to be honest with the people. 1 year, Carlton, the price of peanuts, a pack of peanuts, was $1. A year later, the pack of peanuts was $2. And nobody's wages going to go up by 100% in a year.
No.
You see? And I was looking at the butter substitute. You can't believe it's not butter.
Margarine.
I was shocked. The thing went up by about 40% in maybe 4 or 5 weeks.
But most people don't pay attention to that when they go in the food store. The middle class people pick up these items, put them in the trolley, get to the cash register, and don't realize until sometime later, hey, my grocery bill went up 60%.
I can't buy as much. So what happens is lack of productivity will make you poorer because the system is continuously adjusting. So we've got to keep telling, and thank you for this opportunity on your radio show, we've got to keep telling our people, honestly, you've got to be productive. Nobody is coming to save you. The DNA can't save you, the PLP can't save you, the F&M can't save you. You've got to save yourselves.
Let's go to the telephone lines. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live.
Morning, Carlton. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
And of course, good morning to my DNA leadership team, Andrew, Chris, and Patrick Bo.
Morning.
Chris, Carlton, I'm going to make it brief. I like where you went on the matter of corruption, blatant corruption in this town. Let me say this much to you, Carlton. That is the biggest link in everything in this country. Everything weaves through it. Until we get rid or reduce the level of corruption, nothing in this country is really going to improve. You say that it's difficult to stamp it out. I don't think so. If we look at the decades where blatant corruption has slapped us in our faces. Even the appearance of it, here it is, we had commission of inquiry upon commission of inquiry. We had allegations and we had everything. When you look at other systems around the world, even with persons being alleged in engaging in any illegal or criminal activity, the most decent thing they can do is step down. Our problem in this town is we don't have, apparently our people, even when allegations are cast, even when they have not been disproven, they will not step down.
Well, let me
That
just
is
draw
the
an
problem.
illustration to you why I say it's very difficult to stamp out.
Oh, yeah.
The building on JFK Drive that is now occupied by the Attorney General's office.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that building for 1 second. A contract issued by the first Progressive Liberal Party government in 2004 or 2005 for a $5.8 million building.
Uh-huh.
The building was incomplete when the Free National Movement took office. The Free National Movement said that there were a number of irregularities with the construction. So they had to engage another company to complete the building.
Yes.
They fired that contractor, and they had to pay him $700,000 to fire him. And so they hired another contractor. That contractor goes in there, does some work that's incomplete by the time they lose the election in 2012.
Okay.
The Progressive Liberal Party comes back to government. They got to fire that contractor and hire another contractor. 3 different contractors over 3 governments to finish a building that is valued at under $6 million.
And how much did they pay?
But they spent
Almost
over $30 million on the building.
And you see why I say we shouldn't need that?
And I am talking about corruption. And
And-
the argument today is, why is this $20 million contract being awarded to one of the contractors who were fired? Not the argument today is, why did we spend almost $40 million on that one building?
Because simple, Carlton. Let me put it to you like this. Could you imagine if that had gone through one of the, let's say, if I was a consumer going to a bank to get a loan to build a house, and the contractor received money or funding from the bank to build the house, but the contractor was negligent in fulfilling the obligations as agreed by contract.
See-
the contractor then would have to pay the bank all the fees when, as long as that contract, if you say, hey, I'm going to finish this in 2 months, and the 2 months came and it wasn't finished, but yet they received the monies from the bank, they would be subjected to pay that bank for every day they went.
We lost that call, but I get his point. And that's how it works in the developed world. You are awarded a contract. If you fail to deliver on the deadline date for the completion of that contract, every day that you go beyond the deadline that you and the bank or the company established,
Right.
you pay for that.
Beyond that, Carlton, and we talked about it. This is only one issue, one example of a bigger problem.
Right.
But and just so that another caller doesn't call and say y'all only beating up the mother fellas, because we already know they 2 sides of the same coin. So I don't expect anything different. But what we talked about in the DNA, and we offered it in the last election, was a national procurement agency where all contracts with respect to the government would go through that agency.
But they would say, some would argue that they have that now, because there is a tenders board that we have that people submit tenders to. They're open at a certain time, and the contract is awarded. But there is also the selective bidding process that could
There will be
circumvent
There will be no
the
selective.
tenders board.
There will be no such thing as no selective bidders. We've already, and it's already been shown, that if we put this national procurement agency in place in the public service, that the government would save $200 million, not every 2 years, not every 3 years, every year, $200 million. That's the amount of wastage that we have in the public sector every year.
That's your VAT money there.
But I would say that you know, this sounds good. The DNA sounds like they have a plan that could help move this country in a new direction. But they would say the PLP had a plan prior to 1967, the FNM had a plan prior to 1992, and for the first few years of their administration, they all did very well. But once you are entrenched in power, things begin to change.
Well,
I'm glad you raised that point, Carlton, because I, as a child, at the time that the PLP first came to power in 1967, I recall that the propaganda that was spread around the island was that these fellas don't know nothing about government. They don't have any experience. And if you were to elect these black people in government, we would be worse off than the Haitian. What followed was the 10 best years for the Bahamian people in the history of the country. Again, in 1992.
Well, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. Let's qualify
from
that.
1967 to 1977.
Some would argue differently, but
all right, but that's my
opinion.
Yeah. Again, in 1992, when the FNM came to power in 1992, and I wish to publicly give Mr. Ingram credit for breaking the monopoly on power that Sir Lyndon had. But when the FNM came to power in 1992, again it was said that these people have no experience. And what followed between 1992 and 1997 was another period, a very good 5-year period of service to the Bahamian people. So now today they're going to tell you, the PLP and the FNM, who's been in and out of power for the last 40 years, and that are responsible for this debt and the state of the nation, they're telling you that if you try these young fellas, Branville McCartney, Chris Mortimer, and the DNA, they have no experience in government, and it will... Well, we know we can't do much worse than we're doing now.
Well, I appreciate that argument, and I could support that argument, because Lyndon Pendling was 37 when he became Prime Minister. Hubert Ingram was under 45 when he became Prime Minister. Branville McCartney, I believe, is a little older than 45.
Correct.
Right. So that argument doesn't hold water with me. I believe that, you know, people, if given an opportunity, may rise to the occasion, even if we don't think they can.
And Branwell is in better personal stead than all of them were.
In terms of financial stability.
What he's done for himself, yeah.
Right.
No, and I think, I mean, what you'll find, because I always like to deal with, okay, what are you going to do when you come? You know, we understand that we're fighting the promises not made by the prior parties when we come to power. And I can tell the Bahamian people, a lot of these things that we're talking about doing, by the time election rolls around, we are going to have the legislation that we are talking about. We're going to have them ready. They're going to be posted to our website, so you know when Etheric tells you, when we come to power, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have the legislative agenda on our website before the next election, so that you know when we get in there, we say in the first 100 days, these are the things that we're going to get done. It's going to be done because the legislation will already be there.
We're going to talk about that agenda in a few minutes on a more national scale, from a more national perspective. Let's go to the telephone lines. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live. Hello. Hello, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Doing well.
I must say, those gentlemen from those guys in your studio this morning, Carter, you did very well. I think it's time for a change. And Carter, you said something just now what blew my mind about that billion where they spent all the money. As long as we don't have a government that is afraid to introduce the Freedom of Information Act, we will continue to get what we're getting. As long as we have a country that politicians are immune to the law, that's the only country in the world I see don't lock up politicians.
No,
I don't understand it.
We're not the only country in the world. We're not the only country in the world that don't lock up politicians.
Give me another country that I don't know that.
But
Give me another one.
there are other countries in the world that protect their politicians. So
Okay, let me ask
I don't want you to think that this is a situation that's exclusively Bahamian. It's not.
No, I live in the Bahamas. I'm wondering what happened in my
And we
country.
have had politicians lock up in the Bahamas before.
Name one. Just name one, sir.
Wilbert Moss. I could.
How long was that? How long?
But you know, you don't say it doesn't happen. It could happen.
It ain't gonna happen. Not in the Bahamas. It ain't gonna happen. That's why they do what they do. Mr. Chris Mortimer, as Deputy Prime Minister, would your government introduce the Freedom of Information Act on your first day in office?
That's what I was saying. Before the election, we will have the DNA version of the Freedom of Information Act, which includes a Whistleblower Protection Act component to it. And so the day of election, when we win, the next day when we go to the House of Assembly, it's on the table. We're getting ready to pass real Freedom of Information Act in this country. I make that promise to you.
Yes, sir. Well, you have my vote. You guys continue to do well. And Carlton, thank you for a great show today, and you continue to do a wonderful job, my brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go back to the lines. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live.
Good morning, Carlton.
Good morning, Sonny.
Good morning to my deputy, Chris Mortimer.
Good morning.
Good morning to my colleagues sitting there with you. Carlton, let me tell you what's the difference between the DNA and the now governing party and former governing party. The DNA is a party for the Bahamian people. The DNA is the party that is going to bring the PLP, who the PLP has on one side, the FNM, who the FNM has on the other side. They build a channel between us all. The DNA is the party what's going to bring the Bahamian people back together. That's what we need in this country. And that's what the DNA is all about. Another thing the DNA is going to do, the DNA is a party that is going to empower their people. The DNA is a party who looks at the poor, the underprivileged, and those who cannot speak for themselves, and the DNA is the voice for all of them. The DNA, again, is not going to be like the rest of those who we critically need local government in Nassau so that we could clean this place up. The DNA is not afraid to do all of these things which these other power-hungry fellas want to do, and every time you call for them, you can't reach none of them for no kind of comment, and sometimes when you bring them on your talk show, Carlton, they don't even want to answer some questions. You understand? You bring on the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he telling you for him to come on your show, he ain't answering no call. So are the people his servant, or he is the servant of the people? Listen, gentlemen, you all hold the fort, because they're 15 long away.
Thank you, Sonny. Passionate Sonny Lockett. He was one of your candidates. A good friend of mine, good childhood friend of mine. Grew up in the Grove. Mm-hmm. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live. Hello?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead, please.
Hi, yes, good afternoon to you, Carlton, and to the gentleman that you have on your show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Carlton, I heard one of your callers called in earlier, I think it was Bannister, and he said that the DNA, the third, is not, this time is not the time for the DNA.
Mm-hmm. You got to deal with that and call us back. Hello?
I think so.
Yeah, I think she has a little matter to deal with. Let's go back to the lines. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live.
Hey, Carlton, how you doing?
Good, doing well, buddy.
I'm good. Andrew, how you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing fine, JJ. How are you?
All is good. Well, where my heart is, Andrew, but, all the day and they have to do is just be patient. Be patient. Tell Brownwell, my good friend, eat some humble pie. And your time coming, you know what I mean? Your time coming. Because that caller before me, everything that I wanted to say, he said a while ago. Freedom of Information Act, local government, and the island of New Providence. Because I believe the wealth will be shared around equally. You know what I mean? I also feel that if you guys do decide the balance of the budget, and what I mean by that is, with the election, say if you all win 8 or 9 seats, because it can be tight.
Oh, we're going to win more than 8 or 9 seats.
No, I just using a figure, but I want to be a coalition government. and everybody should be whole. You know, we need to change our constitution, man. You know, I feel as if the commission policemen should be voted in. I feel all my senators should be voted in. I don't want nobody being appointed, man. I guess why we have so much problem in this country. It should all be held accountable to the people, to the citizens of this country. You know what I mean? I figure the prime minister have too much power. The president is, United States, the most powerful man in the world, and he still have to go to the Senate and Congress to get bills passed.
Different system. Different system. Thank you very much for your comments. He made a good point, but the systems are different, and so our Constitution has given the Prime Minister supreme power in our land, and that's something that there's no.
Well, those days are coming to an end.
You can't change easily unless you go to referendum.
No, we have to be serious about where this country has to go. You know, and the days of picking our king or queen is coming to an end.
Well, we have never picked a queen.
No, well, you know what I'm saying. It's a monarchy. It's a system of monarchy.
Okay.
Yeah, so those days
I hear you.
have to come to an end.
Let's go back to the lines. Good morning, you're on Let's Talk Live.
Hi, good morning. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Just a couple of points. Listening to the corruption point, I really want to say that is one of the ways that we need to carry forward is really bringing the nation into the digital age. That will reduce corruption by a great extent. But another problem that we have in the Bahamas, and I don't often hear mentioned, and most persons running for office don't like to mention it, is the fact that Parliament has nobody to watch them. In other Commonwealth countries, we see bodies, or even non-Commonwealth, European governments and so forth, bodies designed to monitor the parliaments of those countries, to monitor the activities of those parliamentarians. So we have in the Bahamas where Parliament is, of course, has rules that govern it and legislation that has consequences, but who's there to enforce it?
Right. There's no ombudsman to oversee what happens in Parliament, well, to monitor what's
But you
going
know, in the last election, and if you check out 2012 and beyond, we called for, and we would have instituted, if we were elected, an office of the ombudsman. That's actually.
An ombudsman is nice, but at the same time, you need an actual physical body to enforce. It isn't so. It needs.
Explain that a little deeper.
Not necessarily just somebody to watch and point it out. You need somebody who's empowered to say, yes, that happened, and now we're going to act on it. The police have not been so empowered in that regard, and I don't think it may be appropriate in that sense to do so. You know, just on the basis of how other parliamentary system works.
Right. I think we'd have to explore that a little deeper, because I don't think that your recommendation has ever been a part of the public debate about how we advance
one institution that's
our
been
parliament.
implemented is the Parliamentary Select Committee, and that's been done through several Commonwealth constituencies. Australia having had it for quite a while. The UK has just recently implemented it. But the Select Committee is just parliamentary bodies that are gathered specifically for review. One of the benefits, particularly in Australia where the Senate is actually elected, allows for the Senate to act as a strictly review body because there's no actual threat of them being removed because they're appointed. The fact that we have a Senate that is appointed is a contradiction in and of itself. It takes away a check and balance. So the Select Committee would act as a oversight body.
But we have a Parliamentary Accounts Commission, a Parliamentary Accounts Committee, I believe.
Yeah, PAC, the Public Accounts Committee.
The Public Accounts Committee that should be responsible for making sure that parliamentarians account for their actions.
Well, that is not about their actions unless there are financial consequences.
Okay.
Exactly.
That is about watching the public purse.
The Select Committee operates differently. It's formed by the parliamentary officers themselves, those elected.
Well, caller, if you don't mind, you can, if you can shoot me some of that information to my either through Facebook, I'm there, Christopher Mortimer, or you can send it to the DNA website, info.mydnaparty.org. We'll definitely take a look at what you're talking about there with respect to some of those select committees.
Don't want to cut you off, but we have to go to our no news update. If you want to continue to hold and advance the discussion a little further after the news update, or you can call us back in about 10-15 minutes.
I don't think I can call you back because it's hard to get through now. I'll hold on.
But that's about 10-15 minutes if you want to hold.
Yeah, it's a landline, so I could just put it on the side for now.
Okay, this is Let's Talk Live. We'll take a commercial break and go to our noon news update. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion with members of the DNA. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live on this Monday afternoon. Now we're discussing the DNA, the National Democratic Alliance, the Democratic National Alliance, and we have the Deputy Leader Chris Mortimer, the Chairman Andrew Wilson, and the Deputy Chairman Ethridge in studio to discuss issues of national importance. And we have some people on the line. We have a gentleman who's been holding now for about 10 minutes. Let's go back to the lines. You were talking about this select parliamentary committee to ensure that certain things are enforced and to ensure that Parliament is functioning in the best interest of the Bahamian people. Continue that discussion for us.
That's correct. What the Select Committee is actually formed by parliamentary officers themselves, the ministers, not the ministers, the members of Parliament themselves. Mm-hmm. In the lower house, usually it's just a body or group of bodies that monitor the activities of the government. The activity in the Senate is not restricted to just the activities of the government, but a review of the members of the lower house in general. Mm-hmm. So it really acts as a clear check and balance, whereas the responsibility is not only borne by the ministers, because of course we know as a government agency, one man is not going to know all the intimate details of every nook and cranny of the agency. So the Westminster style and most Commonwealth nations that are embracing this now are recognizing the fact that one man cannot be entirely accountable for all the activities of these big government agencies. So not only do the ministers need to be brought to bear for their actions, so do those working in those branches of government. So there's a thorough review of these agencies and a continuous exposure to the public as to what is actually happening and occurring in the government agencies from administration to administration. It actually gives parliamentarians something to do other than sit down all day.
Gentlemen, that sounds like an excellent.
Parliamentarians do now.
That sounds like an excellent idea.
I've not seen anything of significance introduced other than, and not even from the government when they're sitting. Mm-hmm. You know, so we need parliamentarians to be more actively participating in governing the country. Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea of the Westminster system.
Right. Gentlemen, that sounds like an excellent idea, but that requires a level of maturity in our politics for us to reach that point where we can appoint a select committee to oversee what the operation, not only of Parliament, but also of government agencies.
What the Westminster system has at its core that we're lacking is a system of honor. Mm-hmm. And somehow, see, and so, you can shame them, mm-hmm. you can embarrass them,
right,
and they will resign. Mm-hmm. We have no shame, and you cannot embarrass us. Mm-hmm.
Well,
we will not resign.
This is one of the consequences of actually, when you say you're going to Parliament and what you're going to do, and this is what I'm hoping with you, mm-hmm. or any political party that makes these promises, is that they actually will carry out with the intent. Even if it comes to the point where we don't have the physical maturity, if it's in the law, mm-hmm. most of the time we abide by the law.
Mm-hmm. See, the problem is,
the general principle is, as bad as our parliamentarians are and as corrupt as we are, this is the reason we don't actually have really good laws on the books right now, is because people, when it comes to the books, people kind of pay attention. Mm-hmm. But if it's not on the books, and if I'm the legislator, I'm not really going to legislate against myself, mm-hmm. if you really think about it. So this is what the benefit of being a new party is. Mm-hmm. Like the FNM in '92, when the PLP first came in, they actually did things because they had that energy.
Right.
As you get settled in there and you
become complacent.
Another side effect of having no term limits on parliamentarians mm-hmm. is that they sit there and they get complacent.
Right.
So in the U.S. too, you have, for example, and what Canada is now considering is term limits on parliamentarians. Mm-hmm. You have so many terms.
Right.
We have Perry Christie has been sitting in the House of Assembly for 41 years now.
It's almost all of our lives.
That's accurate. Mm-hmm. He has sat in Parliament since Findling appointed him to the Senate.
Right, in 1972 to now.
Exactly.
Right.
So he's been there. That type of sitting there, that type of complacency where you're getting a solid salary, You don't pay for anything, so you can't relate anymore to the Bahamian people. You don't know what the Bahamian people are going through. You can't make me a promise because you don't know what I need.
Exactly.
You don't even look at the price of grocery.
Interesting observation.
You know, so when you create that atmosphere, this is why we have the stagnation that we have too in leadership. Because one, I'm trying to hold on to my good seat, my good and cushy seat, and secondly, I can't relate to you because I'm trying to hold on to my good and cushy seat. So I'm going to tell you whatever I think you want to hear. And that's what's being generated to Bahamians now. Even in the Freedom of Information Act, the reason that's not been brought is because there's so much garbage behind the scenes. I don't think they could bear actually any of that coming to light until they've actually hit their grades.
Thank you.
This is how poorly we've operated in this country. This is how poor the laws are. This is how lackadaisical and how lackluster our performance of political leaders has been.
Carlton, can I challenge the caller, please? Because a friend of mine from Guyana, he says to me, Ethric, you guys can talk. You talk a whole lot and you do nothing. Caller, there's always the situation of who is going to bell the cat. Now, let me throw this challenge to you because you seem to care enough to want to help bell the cat. Let's not leave it where you just call this radio show, express your great ideas, and then you go about your merry way while everything carries on as it was before you made your statement. What I'm going to do now is invite you to take some action. Not next month, not next year. Take some action today, tomorrow, and keep on acting to help bell this cat.
And he's asking you, as the political directorate for the DNA, to take some action as well.
Well, my thing always to people is the DNA isn't going to save you. The PLP is not going to save you. The FNM is not going to save you. Get off your chair and come help save yourself.
Is the DNA prepared to implement some of the changes that he is articulating?
Absolutely. I mean, we said that from the beginning. The first thing we said, this country needs good governance. Everything that we can be as a country depends on us building on that. And so, yes, to answer the question, we are prepared to do that.
And you're asking him to partner with you in trying to get this done.
See, democracy is what? Governance by the people, for the people, of the people.
Right.
So don't get a few people, because you just take the 3, 4 of us and make us your leaders and all that. What you doing? You appoint another set of kings. No. Get involved.
You don't want to be a king.
I have no... See, I don't want to rule anybody, and I don't particularly want anybody rule me.
And you don't want to be a kingmaker.
No.
Let's go to the telephone lines. Good afternoon. You're on Let's Talk Live.
Hi, hello. Sorry, I had gotten cut off. That's why.
Yeah.
So just to respond to the gentleman, I'm more than willing to take action in that regard. Please don't feel that I'm not. But at the same time, it also has to be brought to light. And Bahamians are a lot of times are not aware of the problems in our system. So it's good to always put it out there as well.
Thank you.
But I am definitely willing to take actions. But I also wanted to question and query you guys on what your views are.
But I think you made some very good points, and I hope that you would either reach out to the existing political organizations that are in Parliament and to the DNA to ensure that some of those ideas can be brought to the fore, because those are some very good ideas as we tend to deepen our democracy even further.
Well, like I said, I'm on Facebook, Chris Mortimer. Just look me up. Send me a note, a private inbox. We'll definitely get back to you. Send me any ideas that you or anybody else out there that speaks to making our governance in the country the best governance. We'll look at any great ideas, and we don't care where they come from.
Thank you.
You can look out for Joseph Pinder.
All right, Mr. Pinder.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Let's go back to the telephone lines this afternoon. Good afternoon. You're on Let's Talk Live.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Bow, man, I'd like to hear when you
Mr.
take
Bow?
it to the air.
Mr. Bow?
Patrick Bow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Patrick Bow.
Okay.
Like when he takes to the air. And it's a couple of things he said today. One statement he made was, and it was on behalf, it was in a good way. He said the only way to succeed, the Bahamian, he was thinking with the Bahamian in his mind, for us to succeed, he said, we have to expose ourselves to failure. After he said that, I wrote, failure plus its effects from overexposure to failure. And when I wrote that, because of what he said, the overexposure, in my humble opinion, in the interest of the DNA, is that the Bahamian people have been overexposed to for too long, is the PLP and the FNM. Let that sink in.
Wow. Thank you
No,
for
no,
your
no, hold on. Let me make...
you
I
got another
wanted that
point?
to sink it for a second. I'll be quick. I'll be very quick.
Okay.
The government declared the country is broke. That means PLP and FNMs, because both of them, I think, make up the government, even though the cabinet is the ones who doing all the talking.
Right, the government are those people who sit in government. All
So
right.
now, I'm challenging now the DNA, because when your leader was on, I called. My name is Amos J. Miller Israel. My great-grandparents are from the 1800s to the 1900s to now. I'm the great-grandson of a great family, the Miller House in Auckland. I am the holder of the sacred records of that generation. That's why when I take to the airwaves, I speak with authority, I try to be humble, and I try to be respectful. I was one of the, among those greats who would have put in respect to the acronym Mr.
You tell me you can be quick.
Okay.
You're taking me down a generational path. We don't need to
honor
go
and
there.
respect. This is what I want to challenge the DNA.
Okay.
I just needed to say that so when people hear me, they don't think there's some fool calling, you know? And when they hear the DNA on their airwaves, they don't think that's some fly-by-night party. And I'm the person, one of the persons who voted for the, like Mr. Bo, for the PLP. Mr. Bo, you stunned me when you say you told the DNA people to vote for the PLP but join the DNA. I'm almost convinced today to say the same thing but say it this way. I want the Bahamian people to know the truth about the FNM and the PLP as they are about to go and join the DNA. And I'll say this in closing. We were told, and this is one of the reasons why we have so much crime and hardship in this country. Certain generation, my mother is 69, my father is 72. They are both alive. I'm grateful. So anything I say can be backed up. Now, that generation was told, including our generation, I'm 44 in June, that this country has no natural resources. On those grounds, on the other side of that coin, the people who made that statement went ahead, or what we would say in Bahamian vernacular, went behind our backs and signed agreements with foreign interests, what I call foreign invaders. And when that happens, you will be oppressed if you don't know that happened. Now, this is the challenge for the DNA and its leader and its chairman and its board of directors. On the question, should the FNM and the PLP leadership who have held governance of the people in respect to democracy be told to sit down for one reason, because we have to investigate your affairs in the last 48 years of majority rule, 41 years since an independence. We cannot have, so thus we need a DNA to administer the act on behalf of the Bahamian people. And I'm saying these words in the interest of all of us. The natural resources that are in the hands of foreigners, whoever signed the agreements, must be brought to justice. This country is in an $8 billion debt.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I would like Carlton to respond to the issue of natural resources. I recall as a student, we had an English teacher by the name of Miss Hawthorne who came to the Bahamas, and she said to us that the Bahamas has no natural resources. And I raised up my hands and I asked if that's why she is here. Throughout the world, throughout Africa, the Caribbean, etc., they try to tell us we have no natural resources. And so our political leaders would go out there and grant concession to foreigners to drill in the Bahamas ocean for oil, disregarding the trillions of dollars in marine resources that we have.
Well, let's not go that far.
We have the aragonite.
That's
We
what I
have the
wanted to go.
aragonite on Ocean Key, where both the PLP and the FNM, two sides of the same coin, continues to facilitate the exploitation of our resources through contracts. The most recent one was signed on election day after the results were known. Therein, a 25-year lease for Ocean Key was extended.
Well, the approval was granted in 2010.
Yes, but it was extended on election day for 25 years for $7,650 per annum. That's $625 per month, Carlton. Not enough to pay.
$2 per metric ton.
$2 per metric ton for a natural resource that sells on the global market for approximately $900 per metric ton. There's Bahama Rock in Freeport, where they are excavating the rocks and exporting it to the United States without benefits or value added accruing to the Bahamian people. There is BTC, which was responsible, whose employees formed a vibrant middle class, were able to send their children to college, universities, and make them professionals. That corporation has been decimated, and today, for every dollar that we spend, when I call Chris across the street on my cell phone, 50 cents of that previously stayed in the Bahamas now goes to Europe. We have tremendous natural resources in this country, but unfortunately, we have leaders who look across the ocean for foreigners to come in the belief that these people are coming here to build the Bahamas for us and our children instead of for them and their children.
Let's go back to the telephone lines. Good afternoon, you're on Let's Talk Live.
Yes, a pleasant good afternoon, Mr. Smith and your guest.
Yes.
When we talk about fiscal prudence and in terms of wastage in Bahamas government, let's look at paper alone. All right? You now in the computer age. Why is it that every time you find that you have ministry changes, that's a whole bunch of paper have to be redesigned with different logos on it, different.
Well, I would hate to think that we are still producing letterheads for individual ministries. If we're producing letterheads that are necessary to be used in the public service, it should be government, an official Bahamas government letterhead with no names included on it.
Actually, you ought to do a template in your computer.
My letterhead is a digital letterhead.
Right, I understand that. I appreciate that. I'm saying if the government of the Bahamas believe that it may still be necessary for us to produce some communication in hard copy form, and we reduce the number of paper that we're using. We're not producing letterheads that we have to change every 5 years.
But Carlton.
But when you change various ministries,
Carlton, this is where we keep coming back to the VAT issue. You're spending the money like crazy, and then you want to tax me some more?
Right.
You see?
I understand
if we sit us down, we can find so many savings, we will not need VAT. We just need to be sensible.
Yeah, I agree with him. I agree with you, Carlton. In a digital age, there's no reason for us to be, printing in mass huge amounts of paper that will not and cannot be used.
Right.
It's waste.
That to me is wastage. And and if we have to accept the fact that all of us aren't going to move into the digital age at the same time, but let's say our government may be a little slow in getting there.
Right.
But we should be at a point where the greater majority of communication is done electronically. And if we have to do some communication in hard copy for whatever reason, it does not have to be in the volume that we did in the past. And the template should not be one that should require any changes after a government changes.
Leadership should be sufficiently progressive.
Should be. Ideally. That's the operative word, is should.
Yeah. Well, clearly they're not right now.
Yeah, but it
should be.
Let's go to the telephone lines. Good afternoon. You're on Let's Talk Live.
Hi, Carlton. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And to your guest.
Good afternoon.
Let me just make a couple of observations. Firstly, the chairman should cease and desist from speaking about the FNM and the PLP as one side of the same coin.
It's two sides of the same coin.
Well, sorry?
It's yeah.
Yeah, for the simple reason, Brian McCartney came out of the FNM, and so by the same extension, the same thing might be said about the DNA, because their leader is also out of the FNM, and that could be seen as the next side of the same coin. That's the first thing.
I disagree.
Well, that's your right, but I'm just telling you,
Right.
If you continue
Your point
to
is
say
taken,
so,
though. Your point is taken. I get your point.
Right. Secondly, they also have to be careful in that there could be some of them who are presently parading around may also be found wanting when the searchlight is spotted on them. And so they have to also be very careful that they themselves don't drag the DNA down if and when the spotlight is shown on them, especially in the Bank of the Bahamas issues. That's the second thing. And thirdly, they have to take notice of what happened with B.J. Nottage and his party. The public at the time saw B.J. party as the one party that would have taken down both the PLP and the FNM, and they got annihilated at the general elections. So they've got to be careful with the thinking of the Bahamian people. And it is not all so hunky-dory and rosy as they might be painting it today.
I hope you're not suggesting that they abandon their effort.
No, not at all. I'm
Because
just
of
saying.
what happened to B.J. Nottage.
I'm just saying. Speak softly. In the event you have to eat your words, they may be palatable.
Well, he's got some very good and interesting points. But here's the point that I need to make to all of
I'll hang up and listen, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The point I need to make to all of that is, you lose when you quit, you know. And that is what happened with with the CDR, the NDP. They quit.
Yeah.
And the point is, with the DNA, we're taking steps, which I believe you will see hopefully within a month, which will tell you that the DNA is here to stay.
That
and I'll leave it at
many people say that third parties don't have the patience to go through a wilderness experience and then come out on the back end victorious, because that is what it is going to take. You have to go through something before you can experience what it is to achieve.
And we understand all of that. We're not living in isolation, and we agree with all of that. And the point that we want to make is, in short order, if there are three parties, we won't be the third party. That's our point that you got
But
to
quite
watch.
frankly, I mean, the FNM was a third party.
At one point.
At one point, they were a third party.
Yes. In 1977, they were not the official opposition.
Exactly.
The BDP was.
And so, I mean, for those persons who like to bring up the whole issue, that third parties don't work, I just want them to understand that when they make that point, they obviously don't understand history, because the FNM, and they became a government of this country. They started as they were a third party as well.
But they say it required a coalition of the opposition forces in the country at the time to bring down the then government, the Progressive Liberal Party. They don't believe that it could have happened with three parties campaigning and running in the same election.
And that is exactly what is happening. FNMs are coming to the DNA. PLPs are coming to the DNA. And then we have original DNAs. So we have a coalition of
Are
growing...
there original DNAs?
Oh yeah. There are people who are members of the DNA who have been nothing else because it's really their first time. They're just coming of age to vote.
Okay.
So they're original DNAs. And, the FNM came out of the PLP and the UBP. The FNM, the PLP is a different kind of institution because the PLP had a vision for the Bahamian people. That has been hopefully not lost, but they've lost track of it.
They've lost their way.
Hopefully they'll find their way again. The FNM's whole purpose was to destroy and beat the PLP. We have a different kind of thing. We have a vision for the Bahamian people.
What is that vision, in a nutshell?
in a nutshell, our vision is to create a new square deal where in the Bahamas, Bahamians will be number one. Not we believe in Bahamians. We are the Bahamians.
And so how will that happen? How will that vision, how will Bahamians be able to buy into that vision? Saying that sounds good, but I won't necessarily buy into that, because the PLP tell me that they were for us, the F&M tell me that they were for us, and neither of them have proven that they are really for us.
For a time they were for us, and it's getting shorter and shorter. They get elected, and by 3-4 months they become the enemy of the people. But the difference with the DNA and the vision that we're trying to really put in the ground to take root is for every Bahamian to participate in the pie that is the Bahamas. We have to own the Bahamas. We have to benefit from the Bahamas. Carlton, with what I know of about the country right now, the only reason there should be any poor Bahamians in the Bahamas is if we choose not to participate. There are only 360,000 of us, not 10 million, 360,000, and that is what we need to focus on.
This is Let's Talk Live on a Monday afternoon. We're discussing issues of national importance with the Democratic National Alliance. We'll continue right after this. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live on this Monday afternoon. Our special guest in studio today, our very special guest in studio, as I normally say, I don't want to discount these gentlemen, is the Deputy Leader of the Democratic National Alliance, Mr. Chris Mortimer, the Chairman of the DNA, Mr. Andrew Wilson, and the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Etheridge. Both gentlemen, I'm so privileged to have all three of you here this afternoon. I didn't think I could get the three of you with one telephone call, but you know, I gotta applaud the chairman. He does an excellent job at responding to calls, and he makes it happen. Well, he makes talk shows happen. I won't speak about anything else. Let's go back to the telephone lines. Good afternoon. You're on Let's Talk Live. Hello. Hello.
Yes. How you doing?
Hey, Critical. How are you?
I'm doing okay, and hello to your guest in the studio.
Hi, Critical.
Just let me first interject for JJ and as well maybe for the DNA. They should listen to Mr. Fred Mitchell's latest contribution to something I've been advocating for 5 years now. Is the fact that local government is already in the Bahamas. I mean, in New Providence, it's just a matter of advocating for it to be actually allowed. And Mr. Mitchell finally pointed that out in his last contribution. And so they just have to ask for it. You have not, because you asked not. Just for
and who didn't ask? The people didn't ask, or
the people have not asked, or they've been ignorant of the fact that it's in it. You know, I've found since I've been home, there's a lot of things that we advocate for on the radio and the press that's already in law, already in the Constitution.
But Critical, I put it to you that local government in the Family Islands is not really local government. It's just an elevated version of the border works that existed some time ago, where you now elect some people to do what the border works did. You give them their budget, you allocate their funds. They don't have a say in the budget. They prepare something, but they send it to the central government, and when they get it back, it's entirely different from what they say they need.
Right, but that's basically because the individuals, with all due respect, that has basically participated in local government has never really empowered themselves with the knowledge of what local government basically calls for.
But the act, you have to go according to the Local Government Act in the Bahamas.
Right, but see, local government is the key word in this governance, and it requires active participation of the individuals within those particular areas. And so essentially what happens is that we've had a separation of local government and the people, and essentially with this, you have a people get elected, and you only hear about what they are doing, but you never hear an active participation of the people for advocacy, even for budget time or things that has to be done. And so essentially what happens is we need more astute individuals that understands what local government is, not just in the act, but in advocacy for changes that happen. You saw some changes in the act that was attempted or is going to happen, and now you have a local government throughout the country arguing that they had no participation. And essentially because they were absent in their participation over a whole period of 3 years, and government didn't even consult them.
Well, if I could jump in there, Critical, so I could kind of just make people aware of the DNA position on this. I think over the course of this summer, in fact, there is an official actually who is in charge of real local government, who's going to be coming to the Bahamas actually to meet with the DNA. And we are going to formulate a policy for real local government in New Providence. In New Providence.
Is the official from the is a Bahamian?
He's from the Caribbean. At this point, I won't make the announcement as to who he is.
The reason I'm saying is there's a number of Bahamians in right now, and just use an example, myself as well as my brother, in 1993 when Western Florida was nothing but a swamp, when I first built the third home there that we became a municipality in 1996. I was actively involved in that. Also in Miami, Florida, you had the Carol City as you knew it. My twin brother and I were actively involved in that becoming a municipality that you guys now call the City of Miami Gardens. And so, you know, there's many, and I know some other individuals that are home right now.
No, I know, Critical. What I'm saying is this, is that over the course of this summer, okay, we are going to be talking about real local government election for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in New Providence and otherwise, and not what they have. I'm talking.
No, I understand.
And so I mean, when I'm in Freeport, you could always get a hold of me, and if you want to be a part of that, is not a problem. What I'm saying though is we are going to develop real local government for New Providence and the Family Islands.
Well, you better do it before June 23rd, because I could tell you right now, I'm intending and offering myself for local government here in Grand Bahama, and I could assure you for 3 years, if I'm elected, you will know what local government's supposed to be.
Well,
and so maybe you can use that model that I will be putting forth.
Well, I wish you well under the present political environment in our country.
Education, Carlton, is one of the most powerful tools, and I do have the resources and the time from a daily basis, even if I'm not elected, from a daily basis to educate at least on Grand Bahama and again in Freeport to bring about that change. Which brings me to the point I'm calling, is that I've listened to the DNA for a number of years now, and I just want to say to them, communication is getting true, not talking to. One of the most powerful things is something called a vision in any type of environment. And a vision is being able to have people experience the future in the present. And that is where the DNA doesn't seem to getting true. It seems as if though they have relegated themselves by using the media and other things to nothing more than sound bites and press release. And they have not embraced the empowerment and education of the individual. So you talk about the 21st century environment, technology, and communications and everything. But beyond the utterances of your leader and a few press releases, even for the last 2 years, I've not seen you go into the community and help the individuals to become involved and even help shape the vision, because your vision, if it's for the people, should involve the people. There's a statement called Nihil de Nobius, Sine Nobius. It says nothing about us without us. And essentially the DNA seems to be wanting to define the Bahamas without participation of the people, and that I think would be a downfall.
Well, that's not the case, because quite frankly, for example, this coming Wednesday, we've started the National Development Plan Committee, which is made up of a number of people throughout the...
You're talking about the future again.
No.
I'm telling you what has happened so far.
But
an example.
I know, I understand. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Right. And I'm saying, just use an example when you guys came to Grand Bahama, and it's the same question I asked your leader. You know, in the same capacity, he would not try to represent me without getting information in the court field. You should not try to do the same without actually even in governance. And so the key is that, yes, if you are going to do in the future, what I'm simply saying is that you must integrate yourself into the 178,000 individuals who was actually going to be participant, and then you have a whole host of 3,000 to 5,000 individuals every single year. So far, 6,000 or more come of age to vote. And if you're not integrating your message into them or having them believe that they are active participant in the designing, not participation in the designing of the Bahamas they want to see, then again, when the noise comes, your message will be drowned out in the future.
Thank you very much, Critical. I got to take another call. But if you want to respond to that, you can.
No, I take his point, and I agree that it is important for everyone to buy in. And I believe in that particular perspective. So
let's take this call. Good afternoon. You're on Let's Talk Live.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. You got to be quick because we're running out of time.
Okay. Well, I wanted to first make a comment, and then I wanted to ask a question.
Make it quick.
The comment I wanted to make is, first of all, that I agree with the DNA coming on stream and whatnot. The last time I called and spoke to the leader of the DNA, terrible things started to happen. I guess I went too far in saying that I would like to be on the short list. But at this time, what I'm asking you, because I've been talking to the younger persons, what they keep saying is that our leadership in this country now seems to only pontificate at the top, and when they never come to the people, they never get down to the youth and try to find out what really is the problem. Every time they're just showcasing. And my question is, how do you intend to break this colonial system that we have, that everything flows to the top, so that once you get to be at the top of the heap, then you ain't got no more problem. Everything is going to go to you. I was looking at this thing here from the Willie Lynch record, which he says in How to Make a Slave, and I keep thinking that we are still in that category. What solutions do you have for stopping this trend of putting us back into slavery square one?
Thank you very much for that question. I'll let them respond because we're running out of time.
I think part of not going into slavery is one, not actually walking into it. I think what we've done is we've empowered our so-called leadership and thrown everything, all of our trust, all our belief, our system of operations, everything, and we put it on them and let them do it. And then we sit back and say, you know what? I expect them to do it for us. And what you find that the DNA is saying, listen, we don't want you just talking about putting your vote in us and then expecting us to do those things. We don't want to be just like them. We don't want you just to, give us a vote and turn your back. We want you to be actively involved. If we are serious about turning this country around, it's going to take more than just 38 candidates and a prime minister. It's going to require all of us working hard. That's how we break it.
You talk about a National Development Plan Committee. Who comprises this National Development Plan Committee, and what are you seeking to do through this National Development Plan?
What we're seeking to do really is to lay out a long-term vision from the people. The DNA as a group has ideas, but we want something that is of the people, and for them to lay out, listen, as it relates to natural resources, these are the things that the DNA needs to be focusing on, because this is what the people want. When it comes to crime and education, when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to how do we develop our family islands, how do we really make Grand Bahama the magic city it was? What do we do about Inagua and San Salvador? Those are the things that this committee is charged with, shaping a vision over the long term as to where we go.
And who comprises that committee?
Right, it's actually, I'm happy that he's heading it. Dr. Rogers is going to head it for us, and it's comprised of a number of Bahamians, but we'll make a formal announcement as to who they are in the next couple of days.
Gentlemen, we're fresh out of time. Any final comments before you leave the show today?
Absolutely, Carlton. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the invite. Listen, I want to leave with the Bahamian people that we have the answer to our problems in our hands, and a big part of the answer, in my view, is our productivity. If we are consistently productive, we will not be poor. If we are not poor, our behavior will change, and some of the things that we do that's pushed by poverty will move to the side. But productivity, let's see if we can be consistently productive. That does not take a government change. A government change would help, but we could start doing that today.
Andrew?
Yes, Carlton, what I would like to leave with the Bahamian people is that there's no pride in saying I was born in FNM, I'm going to die in FNM, or I was born a PLP, I'm going to die a PLP. God gave us a brain with the capacity to think. We are in the predicament that we are in because we blindly followed leaders as they led the country straight to hell. So please, let's just open our minds as to what what the various parties are offering, and let's forget this born a PLP, die a PLP foolishness.
Chris?
I love this country, and I believe that Bahamians love this country. And if you are serious about your love for this country, the future of this country, and your children, then you have to act beyond yourself. It's not about whether you are a PLP or an FNM. It's about whether you love this country. And if you love this country the way I love this country, I believe you are prepared to step beyond yourself. You could still be a PLP and vote for the DNA in the next election because you believe that's what is best for this country. You could be an FNM and love this country so that you are prepared to step beyond yourself and vote because you believe that that's what this country needs. That's where I am. I believe this country offers a future so bounteous if we act together as a people. And I hope people get that, because I believe in my heart of hearts that this country is the best little country on the entire face of this planet.
Chris Mortimer, Ethric Bowe, Andrew Wilson, thank you so much for joining us on Let's Talk Live this afternoon. Today's show was brought to you by KFC, BTC LTE, Colina Insurance, the IAAF World Relays Bahamas, Easy Car Sales, and the Free National Movement. Join us again tomorrow morning for another edition of Let's Talk Live.